We had a big run-in with Shell up in Bakersfield.
Your company, Shell, announced it was closing its oil refinery in Bakersfield, California, an oil refinery that supplied 2% of our state's gas. We already had some of the highest gas prices in the country, and the community was up in arms.
And very quickly it became apparent that Shell was lying.
This was a struggle to get Shell to cooperate with us. The Attorney General had to force them, in essence, to open up their books.
We got some documents showing this was actually the most profitable refinery in Shell's entire system in the world.
Internal documents showed Bakersfield Refinery was making the biggest marginal profit of any Shell refinery in the country. So could you please explain why your company put out that word, that there were no buyers? That wasn't true. That the refinery wasn't reliable? That wasn't true. That the refinery wasn't making money? That wasn't true. Was it because you wanted to control the supply of gasoline?
They wanted to shut it down because if they could make less gasoline, they can make more money.
It seemed to us, and in retrospect still does, that there was a desire to short the market even more.
Ladies and gentlemen, to present this year's Phillip Burton Public Service Award, please join me in welcoming the brother of Phil Burton and the recipient of the inaugural Rage for Justice Award, one of the greatest legislative leaders California has ever known, and a man whose presence in Sacramento, and I tell this to you personally, we dearly miss it. We dearly miss it, but he continues to make the world better through his Foundation for Children Without Homes. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Burton.
Well, you didn't really have to listen when I said that. Anyway, thanks, and I'm glad that after talking about everything, we got along to the real issue of tonight's dinner, and that was to raise the money to keep this foundation going, because it's very important to have it going, as Sheila Kuehl will tell you, and those of us that try to fight the fight in Sacramento. But this is really an honor for me to introduce Barbara Boxer anywhere. Barbara Boxer was as instrumental as anybody in getting me elected to Congress back in 1974 when she was my campaign manager. And Barbara also was my district staff director, and Barbara was some kind of conscience to me. I'm only going to tell one story, but it sort of sums up Barbara Boxer. There had been over in Marin County in a township called Ross. It wasn't a city, mind you, it was a township. That's how rich it was. And there was a creek that went through this township, and the Corps of Engineers was going to kind of change the creek into like the LA River thing, those cement banks that go through so that just the water drain into the bay. And Barbara called me up and said, "John, you must come over here. You must." "Why do I have to come over here, Barbara?" "You must come over here. When you see this, you're going to be absolutely outraged." And I said, "I really don't think I'm going to be outraged at anything happening in Ross, Barbara, but if you want me to come over, I will come over because you are outraged about this." So we went over, and it was at a house by a guy named Les Bricca. And they had something like you had with Barbara here, only it was longer. And it showed a babbling brook, and it showed fish, and it showed like what a babbling brook and stream would be. And then it kind of stopped, and it showed the cement ditch. And I looked at Barbara, and I said, "Now, the way the ditch is the way the babbling brook upstream is." She said, "Right." And I said, "If we do not stop this, that where the babbling brook is, we're going to have another cement ditch." And she said, "Right." I says, "Barbara, again, you're absolutely correct. I am outraged about it." And that was Barbara kind of pushing me. But she is such a hero to me for everything she's done in the Senate and in the House of Representatives. one of the first voices against the war in Iraq, one of I always thought stopping that concrete ditch was equally as important, but you would have to been there to really realize the impact of what we did. But what she's done on the environment, what she's done on consumers, but she is the best there is. They say that Arnold's going to run against her. Well, yeah, that'll help. Why don't you write her a check instead of hissing Arnold? Because it is very important that we keep people like Barbara in the Senate. She is so great and so wonderful that I just can't be prouder to have her as my friend, to be able to brag on people and say, you know, she once worked for me. And so I give you this award, which coming in Philip's name. And Philip at first used to say about Barbara, what is it about, we would get in arguments about Barbara. And he says, and I would get very irate, as I tend to do. And those of you that know Philip, he could get a little irate himself. And he said something about Barbara. He says, you know, the person here, she's running for supervisor in Marin. I says, yeah, she's going to win. And then would get in this thing. And he said, Jesus Christ, Johnny, we're not talking about Mom. We're talking about Barbara Boxer, for Christ's sake. And I said, well, Philip, you're going to learn. And when she came to Congress, taking my seat, I'd say replacing me. Usually don't replace me, but she replaced me. She came to Congress, and it was a very short time span where Philip said, you know, you were absolutely right about her. She's dynamite, and she will be dynamite. And those of you that want to keep her dynamite better contribute to her campaign so that we don't have Arnold in there as a firecracker opposed to dynamite. So I would like to have you come up. Where are you, Babs? Where are we sitting? Barbara Boxer, our senator.